Hi, I'm Doug Draper with Acme Distribution and the Denver Transportation Club. Pleased to present a 10-part series with the supply chain and logistics, the Storytellers. The series is brought to you by Cap Logistics. Cap Logistics is experts offering you customized transportation solutions for your everyday needs. Please visit caplogistics.com today. So today's topic is really doing business with Mexico. And we have a couple of great guests with us today. Alvaro Espinosa with B9 Sigma and Bonnie Chacon with Cap Logistics here in the studio. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So as we had just said, working and doing business with Mexico, let's talk more about that, right? Because it's all about collaboration and moving together. And sometimes we talk about NAFTA, right? There's a lot of partners that we can do work with. Some are in China and overseas, but oftentimes the word NAFTA or the acronym NAFTA is overused and understood. It's a terrible word to use, but you know what I'm saying, right? People just don't understand what that means. So as we're out there trying to find partners to collaborate with and grow our businesses with, talk about NAFTA itself, what it means, and what it really means to businesses and how that helped differentiate other markets in the world.
So first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you to share this microphone with Bonnie. So yeah, I've been working in the industry for 27 plus years in manufacturing, and I was honored to be running a factory that was 8,000 employees at a point, and we were shipping out of the building $1 billion in a given year. 2002 was the record of that operation. So we had more than 70 customers. Most of them we import from Mexico in and out of United States, and also in and out of China. We were shipping even to China and Europe. So the NAFTA, you are absolutely correct. People doesn't know the depths and the benefits of that, and also the challenges that also are implied in the NAFTA agreement. So basically, it's the North American trade agreement between Canada, United States, and Mexico. And that agreement allow companies to do business in a safe way. I think the biggest portion of it is that your assets, your IP, and basically the name and the brand of your company is safeguarded by NAFTA. So that agreement allow you to basically extend your boundaries, your border, all the way to the South Mexico and all the way up to Canada. That's what the intent of NAFTA is, that you get leverage and you become in this economical, as a second stage, become an economical region, like European Union is. So that, with that said, it's just basically that is a legal framework where people can actually do business in and out that region.
Right. And how long has NAFTA been in place?
I don't know. You want to answer that one?
Gosh, I'd have to go back and look at the books. Yeah, I don't even remember. But at this time, it's currently being renegotiated. Yeah. And what a lot of people are calling NAFTA 2.0. And there was a lot of speculation in the last couple of months that portions of NAFTA would be dismantled, that it wouldn't be as strong moving forward. And thankfully, just even in the most recent 2 months, a lot of our congressmen have come together. Both Canada and government officials from Mexico have been in Washington still to this very moment right now, extending their time for another week to wrap that up. And the benefits for everybody are going to stay in place and continue to just be improved. So a lot of the benefits that we had before stay in place, and even new ones come into play. So I think we're all looking forward to the next week or two for the announcement of that, and it should be good news for everybody. Yeah, well, those foundations realize that everybody that touches the program understands how important it is. Yeah. So we talked about NAFTA, and one thing that caught my attention that I've always heard of but don't really understand how the protection works is the IP, or the intellectual property. Correct. So talk about that. I have an idea that I want to make a widget or something, and I want to make it down in Mexico. And I understand that you have the physical product itself that can be protected, but talk about the IP. How does that relate to the flow of the process? The protection of IP.
Sadly enough, patents are everybody that is out there in the real life we know that patents is not something that will make you rich, unless you really sell your rights to a big firm or something, then you are into a very high-end science, right? Like come up with some breakthrough. But for a normal person, if you get a patent, I mean, out of the NAFTA region, really, people really doesn't care. To better understand this, I have a customer, and it's one of the stories.
Yeah.
Couple customers where basically they trust everything out. They put, I mean, I don't want to say contracts, whatever, but they put this invention in the hands of a manufacturers out of the region without any really precaution there. And at some point they were not in control of their assets. Mm-hmm. I mean, the suppliers overproduce products even for the black market, and they backdoor and they reach to their own customers. So from that level of stories to the point where, hey, I want to move production to another region, or I want to have an ECO, and then they don't have control. You lose complete control of that. Well, in NAFTA, you actually have reinforceable laws that you can actually reclaim your assets, tooling, all kinds of testers, or any device that you consign to the operation. Mm-hmm. You can reclaim that back and have a judge in Mexico or in Canada really reclaiming that, and you can actually shoot down an operation if you find that there is an infringement on your agreements. While in Asia, I mean, the biggest story is that, I mean, I've seen a Mercedes-Benz car without the logo, and it's just like all knocked off.
Mm-hmm. It is true, because if you think about it, yes. You know, your patents are safeguarded here in the U.S. That's a U.S.
Coverage.
That you went and you got, but yet the patent doesn't necessarily get applied in China or Japan or Vietnam. So there are processes that companies can go through to then get a patent in that country or for some IP protection. It's very expensive.
Right.
It's very difficult to do. And really, the primary issue with that is how enforceable is it?
Yep.
Here in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, it's far more enforceable, whereas even if you manage to go through all those steps in other countries, to actually be able to enforce the IP that you then just bought is very challenging. So I as well, I've got tons of customers that have had issues with black market products being put out there, especially in today's internet. You know, you sell on Amazon, you sell on eBay, and the next thing you know, you're seeing counterfeit products. So again, NAFTA is just a great alternative, and doing business here locally is a much better option.
Yeah, I mean, if it's your brand and your idea, to lose control, that's a huge, very important to be able to trust another country that you're going to have that protection. So I completely understand that. So.
Yeah, it's a big. The problem is that, like, even Rolex and Mercedes and all these big brands, that they can have the cash enough to deal with those situations.
Yeah.
A local guy or a startup or a new business division, they don't have the debt pockets to deal with a legal fight that will take years, decades actually. So.
Yeah. And I think that the counterfeiters or the folks overseas know that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Yes.
But in addition
you
to
had a great idea, and I took it. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. But in addition to that, NAFTA also has a ton of benefits. So that I think a lot of people don't think about. So Alvaro, I know we've talked a lot about lead times.
I think that, I now live in the United States. I have the privilege to be invited to live in this country. Worth to say that it's a beautiful liberties and a beautiful democracy. So I want to put that aside. The main benefit that you can get on that is, I've seen businessmen saying, Alvaro, I need alternatives because this is a cash dragon. It's eating all my cash because I need to put all this capital in inventories that are traveling 45 days in the ocean of 30 days. So the cash cycle is what actually is one of the biggest benefits. And I think that just being able to go from 45 to 4 days and have a quicker response to your customers that way, and that flexibility, that not only save you money but also give you the ability to serve better your customers. You can provide order fulfillment. You can actually ship directly to your clients. You can actually change orders in a time frame of 24 hours and change models. And so the market and how the new consumer market environment is will require you to be more flexible and have that type of services that you can actually be setting up in the NAFTA region very strongly. Like, we can discuss that down the road. The next story, right? What is next is that United States can become this order fulfillment logistic center, while you can actually do a good engineering of your supply chain and get leverage and benefit from all these NAFTA and other international agreements, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to pick up on that because I love my dear friend here. But that is so huge to go from 40 to 4 days. I mean, think about that. Your money's not tied up. Your asset carrying costs just shrunk so much, so it allows you greater flexibility of what else could you be doing with 36 days of funds. You could be doing a lot with that, investing differently, going into new prototypes, putting it back into sales and marketing.
Right.
So a lot of advantages just from being able to take your supply chain down from a 35 to 40 day cycle down to 4 days. Just can't speak enough.
Yeah, I was going to say that's impactful even for the consumer on the shelf, right? Well, what do I care? When I walk in the store, I'm going to buy it whether it doesn't matter how long it took, but I think if you take a step back, it really does matter how long it took because of the ingenuity you can bring to the table.
Right.
Because your product, you now have more capital to put the bells and whistles around it. You can bring it to market faster.
Correct.
You can sell it for less because you don't have the carrying cost as well as the transportation cost. So if you take a step back, even the consumer will be like, well, what do I care if it takes 45 days? You actually should care, and those are the reasons why.
And it's been more and more difficult throughout the years, especially in the supply chain. All the analytics and the data that you can get so that you can be that much more responsive to the customer's demand is so important. If you have to allow 40 days to change to those demands, you're already missing a lot of the sales cycle. So all of a sudden, if you can go down to a 4-day and you can react that much faster to either increases or decreases in demand from the customer, you're going to be able to potentially even have larger sales as a result of that. So it's huge.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a story for you that, one of my, initially one of my biggest customers came to me and putting this transfer of his business, let's say configuration or design, supply chain into a more, let's say localized model where this cash flow was released. It just allowed him to continue operating. I mean, it was not like, it's a nice to have, it's a must have for many of our clients because, they don't know what they don't know when they see the big picture and they see not only the 4-day reduction from 40 to 4, but also when they say, I can give you on top, NAFTA allow you to have financial instruments. So some of the vendors in that region can give you credit. So when I told them, and by the way, they will give you 45 days credit. I mean, literally, the guy was in tears.
Really?
He cried. And when I asked for a evaluation of my performance, the guy told me, God sent you to me. That was his review. And because of, and I'm like, no, I'm not God sent. I just know the law and I know manufacturing and logistics and that impactful.
I was about to say you just won the best story of the week. So. But in all honesty, I mean to have NAFTA in place and have that type of reaction for people you do work with is
I have
truly is.
A lot of those. I have a bunch of stories like people that they don't have to put their house as a collateral for working capital or put their kids scholarships in risk. I mean, this is so we do business to perform, but we give people lives back. That's the way I that's my job. That's what I do. So
now you've heard some of the great things that can happen. I think it's important too to just touch base on maybe some of the misnomers about doing business in Mexico.
Yep.
And it can be everything from crime and corruption to poor infrastructure, difficulty to do business because of language barriers, etc.
Work conditions you hear about.
What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, definitely you need to go, like you go on a vacation, right? Because most Americans, we have gone to Cancun or some of those. I mean, if you go to the wrong places, regardless, is a touristic place, you're going to get in trouble. So you definitely need some advice and help. So that's where I jump in, and what I do is like I do a sanity check. But once you have these different tiers, I mean, let me explain a little bit about that. In any industry, you have tiers, right? Like guys that are tier 1, meaning they are global and they are certified in X and Y, all these certifications in quality, and safety, and even IT systems. I mean, there is the tier 1, which is like the top of the notch, and those guys are called by the Apples, the Cisco systems, big brands, Teslas, right, and stuff. Then there is other tiers, tier 2s and tier 3s, which from there you can absolutely trust, because those are companies that normally they have ownership that is either public or even American interest or Canadian or international interest. So those companies are legit and are strong in their what I would call absorbent. I mean, like they care about the laws, right? And they spend money on their contracts, and they. Right. So my advice is that yes, don't go blindly and just trust the first guy that you met in the airport. That's not or you just go and venture yourself into Juarez or Tijuana and those places. Like you need to get some advice, and I think Connie is a great resource. She knows that area very well in and out. I'm here also local, so we can just give you point you to the right direction. Once you are there, you can be absolutely certain that your interest will be covered. Like those companies has other contracts, right? So right. One key that I can give to our audience on the radio is that, hey, if they have an agreement with Tesla, or they supply a component to Volkswagen in Puebla, or some other companies of that type, you just need to know who are the other customers, and right in that moment you will see like, oh, I'm not running a risk. Right. So that's very simple rule of the thumb. Yeah. And yeah.
I think some of the other things that people really haven't considered is the progress that Mexico's made over the last decade. Mexico actually has, through their own GDP, they put back 5% into infrastructure. So their roads, their airports. Mexico City, I believe, just went through a $13 billion airport renovation, both on passenger and cargo. So the areas at the ports, the roads, the trucks, all of that is continuously being reinvested in. And so at this point, the safety and the confidence that you can have in the infrastructure of Mexico is sound and proven today, and it's only going to get better as every year goes forward. So they're making those capital improvements that are necessary to be a true partner for years to come. The second place I really see them growing quite a bit is just truly servicing the manufacturing sectors, both with plastic injection, machinery, tooling. Automotive's always been good. Yeah, aerospace, specialized alloys. So a lot of the areas that right now, a lot of the topic of conversation is the tariffs from product coming in from China that's being hit. A lot of those you can find great sourcing partners down in Mexico and look to avoid some of those penalties that I guess people are viewing those tariffs as penalties coming in to the United States. They're going to look at making product a little bit higher. It's a great opportunity right now for companies within the United States who are currently sourcing out of China to consider alternatives and speak with someone like Alvaro, who can go ahead and help them find great manufacturers of similar products down in Mexico.
That's great. So let's say three quick steps, right? So I'm now making my widget in Vietnam, and I want to take advantage of NAFTA and all the things we've been speaking about today. What do I do? Do I come to B9 and say, here's my widget, help me walk through the process? Or if I was a manufacturer of some sort, what do I do to investigate down into Mexico?
Well, I'm partnering with CAP right now. So we are presenting the whole end-to-end picture right now. So I have my company. I've been out there, in manufacturing 27 years, but in my own firm, I'm in my 5th year. But we are leveraging, Bon and I and all the CAB logistic team, plus I have also people on the ground in Mexico that are associates of my company. So we basically, what you need to do is just say, hey, call Bonnie or myself, either or, and say, hey, I have this widget. So, and we have a template, actually it's in my website, where you can just go and just fill the template where I ask you current HTS, current terms, all this information will allow us to tell you, okay, we're going to set up a business case. So the first thing that we do, and we have done that, we are doing that in the current moment, where we ask you for volume, we ask you for what are the mix of the products, how is the standard pallet size, questions that will allow us to give you the whole projection of what you can expect before you spend any money. We will tell you, you have a chance or a case here, or your volume or the status of your specific product is not convenient. We will tell you right off the bat. We will take us 48 hours to find out.
Just understand the business profile, and then would you be able to take it to the next level and say, here's 5 guys in these different cities that can take care of this, or?
Depending. If it's a commodity, something that is known and there is no tooling development or some customization or any sorts, we can definitely go ahead and we have a validated sources that we can just tell you, okay, these guys are tier 2, they're great in this, and we understand their capabilities, and we can just point you that direction. And if we don't add value, this is my philosophy. I don't really bring value to the table. I will just give you the contacts, put the guys on the phone, and Bonnie can take care of your logistics, right? And I'm out of the picture, and it's all logistics and tariffs and all that. However, if it's a customized product and it's tooling that is, let's say, unique and customer specific, that's another approach, because there you need to make sure that you get, precautionary actions. Like a transfer is a step-by-step process. You need to create a buffer stock so you don't deplete your shelves, right? You need to create some also a plan to probably double your assets in terms of tooling, because you don't want to disrupt your supply chain, telling the whatever Chinese or Vietnamese, hey, we are leaving. Right. Never do that. It's like a no, don't do that. So those type of advice will require that we engage in an agreement, because it will require a lot of legal support, a lot of agreement support, a lot of help on developing engineering tooling and other things that we can support you with. But those are the 2 type of scenarios, right?
Yeah. And I appreciate Alvaro bringing up the logistics side as well. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about that today. Some people are a little bit hesitant just because they haven't done business in Mexico before. There are a few 5 or 6 quick steps that are really part of any one of those transactions. So you've obviously got your inland trucking or air move from Mexico up to the U.S. You've got your Mexico export customs clearance process. There's usually a transfer that has to happen if it's going by truck from the Mexico into the U.S., which is considered a crossing. Then you've got your U.S. customs process as well as your U.S. transportations piece. And so the nice thing about that is partnering with someone who's got so many years in actual sourcing and manufacturing down in Mexico, as well as Cap Logistics, who is very knowledgeable of all of those steps that I just mentioned. We can provide services throughout so that you've got a complete seamless supply chain.
Yeah, that's terrific. I'm glad both of you were here to get both perspectives of that, because sometimes you forget about the other and they really run in concert together. They do. So. That's great. We've only been just really touched on the surface here. This has gone by so quickly, but the series is all about storytellers, and you've told some good stories this go around. So my question to you is, what's the next story for the next 5 years with Mexico manufacturing and the relationship with the United States? What do you think it's going to be? Okay,
I think that despite of our political environment and some policies that are being pushed back and forth, I think that at the end of the day, prevails the reasoning, right? The doing business, generating value is what is going to be dictating. So nobody wants to be losing money. Nobody wants to be affecting anybody else. So what I see next is to get to the next level, to really embrace or proximity and or strengths and abilities. I always make this joke. I say, if we get the innovation of the Americans, the work ethic of the Mexicans, and be cheap like the Canadians in terms of taking care of our money, we will be unbeatable as a region. So I think the next level is to get there. I mean, I'm telling you in a lovely way, because I have a lot of friends Canadians, and they're very good in managing their money and all that. But I'm serious. I mean, the next step is to really embrace that differences and those strengths, and become a more solid region in the world.
Well, you just hit the topic of our next show, which we'll call the Super Trifecta. It's pretty much what you just laid out. So thank you both for being here. I really do appreciate it. And again, we're with Connect and Collaborate Network about the supply chain logistics, the Storytellers. You guys were terrific storytellers this go around. And thank you so much. It's brought to you by CAP Logistics.